Yeah, there's definitely some dark energy here.
You feel like there are people watching you.
Everywhere you're walking, there are bodies.
I feel like the spirits of those people that burned are still here with us.
It was freaking terrifying.
It's the portal to hell. Her and her family should be scared.
Behind the bustling main streets and charming homes in towns across North America, dark entities hide in the shadows, watching, waiting, and weaving themselves into the lives of the unsuspecting.
A dark entity could be a demonic spirit, or they might be a regular intelligent spirit who just wants to be violent. You never know what you're dealing with. I like to call dark entities faceless, nameless ghosts.
These nameless, faceless, dark entities can be found in the most unsuspecting places, like the tiny town of Millville. Just an hour away from the vacation paradise of the Pocono Mountains in northeastern Pennsylvania.
Millville is super friendly. Everyone knows your name. It's a great place to raise your kids.
This close-knit community of less than 1,000 people was founded in 1700 by the wealthy and religious Eves family.
Millville has a unique history because it was formed by Quakers, and that is something that you can still see today in Millville. There's no alcohol sold in the town. There's still a Quaker meeting house.
The people are all kind of like down-home people.
There's a lot of beauty here. And there's trout streams and the mountains.
But behind the town's natural beauty lies a dark secret.
The Wyoming Massacre was an attack on a series of forts along the Susquehanna River. And it was a very horrific and bloody situation. And their whole homestead was burned down. And then they had to start over.
Land that has had traumatic events, like a battleground, for example, it's like an energetic magnet for dark entities.
Yeah, there's definitely some dark energy here. A lot of bad things have happened.
The survivors of the massacre buried the hundreds of villagers who were killed and tried to put the devastating attack behind them as they rebuilt Millville on the other side of the river.
They moved it over here in 1772, and that's when Millville became the town here.
But moving to a new location couldn't rid the town of its dark past.
There's just too many stories, and anytime you're living on top of a large burial ground of people for the last 400 years, there's going to be some bad energy.
And that bad energy can be found throughout Millville. Shanna and PJ's home is no exception. Shanna Hayden married her high school sweetheart and moved into the historic downtown Millville house that 3 generations of his family have called home.
Growing up, my father was in the Air Force, and so we moved around a lot when I was a child. And so I just love Millville because it feels like home to me. But I'm talking about Millville in the daytime. At nighttime, there's a different vibe. It feels a little more unsure. You can feel a dark energy. You feel like there are people watching you. So I just feel like there's blood on the land. Moving in almost immediately, things were very creepy. My watch went missing. My shoes would go missing. Things would be moved around. And when I'd mentioned it to my husband, he said, maybe you're just tired. But when you know that you put your watch in a certain location and it just disappeared, that's when you start questioning, is it something else? I had my shoes go missing. My husband couldn't find them. I couldn't find them. I opened the door of the nursery, and my shoes were in the corner, almost like it was in timeout or something. That made me feel very uncomfortable. It very much wanted me to see that. My husband saw it too. We both were flabbergasted by it.
And that's when Shanna's husband, PJ, reveals a secret hidden in the depths of their home.
The house was built over the town watering hole. Before the house was built, people would come here for their water. They would take it home. They would have their water for the night.
This well would soon become a gateway to terror, unleashing dark entities that would torment Shanna and her family for years to come.
Is it safe for us to go down here?
It is safe now. It's an old house. I just thought it was an uneven floor. When you come down here, it's probably a surprise for you, but this is actually the well. This right here. This is an original, like, hand-hewn slate that was put on top of the well. If you lift this up, it is still an active well.
Are we able to lift it up?
No. Right, Binks? Absolutely not. You can go through my entire house. You can record anything you want. But I will never lift that ever again, because it's the portal to hell.
You actually think that?
Yes, I do.
You think that that's a portal?
Absolutely. There's something underneath. There's something down there. I am afraid that it's going to come out of the well somehow.
Water is a conduit for spiritual activity. And so a dark entity could absolutely be using that well to gain entrance into their home.
As Shanna and PJ settle into the house, the dark entity continues to reveal itself.
Within a few months of us living here, upstairs in the attic, I would hear the pitter-patter of feet, a game of chase or tag or something, and I would hear giggling. And so I would send my husband up to check on it because I didn't want to go up. He said, I feel the change, that undertone. After I heard those voices, I actually bought crucifixes the very next day. And I put them in every single room. So if you look in any of my rooms, you'll see at least one crucifix.
The crucifixes keep the dark entity at bay until Shanna and PJ are pregnant with their first child.
I was very happy to be a first-time mom because we had so many problems. So for me, I think making the nursery was just that final step that proved that I was going to be a mom. I was just so excited. And I just remember looking at the crib, knowing it was completely built. I had everything up on the walls, but I was missing the blankets. I was going through a box looking for the blankets and the pillows. And clear as day, I heard a voice says to me, it was so clear and it was so real that I immediately felt scared because I hadn't even given birth. And to think that something wanted my baby before it was even born, I was scared, not for me, but for my unborn child. I told PJ I refused to go into the attic ever again until the house was blessed.
Shanna and PJ have their local priest visit the house and perform a blessing with holy water. The blessing works, but only for a while. When the couple welcome their first child, the dark entity reappears in their lives.
Little did I know that what was coming was going to be way worse.
It's very possible that this dark entity could use this well as an energy source, as a way to travel through the home. You know, Shanna's afraid that this entity might do some damage to her child, but it's a form of spiritual intimidation where this entity wants her to know that it has the upper hand. It is capable of doing physical damage to her or her child.
3 months after Sophie is born, Shanna's fear of the dark entity's interest in her baby is confirmed.
I was sitting on this couch. Sophie was in the nursery. We were thankful that she was sleeping through the night because she'd been waking up crying and screaming quite often. The TV was on. And on the baby monitor, out of nowhere, this horrifying noise came through. Something in the nursery. It sounded human and inhuman at the exact same time. I was running as fast as I could. What was really horrifying is my baby is in the crib. She's curled in this fetal position, screaming. The blanket that I had swaddled her in, it was hanging off the crib. My first thought is to grab her and go running outside. Whatever that sound was, it felt evil, and it took the blanket off my daughter. If it could do that, what else could it do?
Possessiveness is a characteristic we do see with dark entities. For Shanna to hear the spirit say, "Is that my baby?" is absolutely an intimidation factor, and her family should be scared.
As a mother, I think I was more upset because I couldn't protect her. You know, I brought my child into not a great house.
Did you consider not living here?
Yes. People always ask, why didn't you move out? And the short answer is we couldn't. We were living paycheck to paycheck. We would go visit family and live with them for a bit, but how long can you live in someone's house before you become a burden? So we always came back. Two years later, we brought Sophie's little brother Eli home from the hospital. He was adorable. I wanted to have his newborn photos done. And I had this superhero idea in mind. My mother-in-law, my mom, and myself, we'd all bought different Superman outfits for him. He had a Superman hat, he had a Superman onesie, some really cool blue and red pants, and even Superman shoes. So I wanted to mishmash all of these different items together to make a really cool Superman photo for Eli. But the onesie was missing. And I was just flummoxed that this onesie was missing because I knew that I had had it. I'm very organized with all of my stuff. I had looked all over the house. I had looked in the nursery, I had checked in our bedroom, I had gone in the basement and checked our freshly folded laundry. It wasn't there. And so then it just kind of hit. It must have taken the onesie now too. The entity had to have it at that point. Like there was just nowhere else for it to be.
Dark entities can definitely move objects. They are able to manifest their energy. They actually are a lot stronger than other spirits.
So I was just frustrated. I know the cardinal #1 rule about having a ghost in your house is to not talk to it, but I did that. And I said, I never talked to you, but I need the onesie. And I said, please return it to me. I then turned and went back to the basement.
Why did you go back down into the basement?
I think I just knew. I had this feeling that it would be back in the basement. And so I just came down here and I turned. And the basket's right here. And laying on top of it is the onesie. And when I crouched down to grab the onesie, right there on the slate on top of the well is this figure, and it's just standing there. I was so scared that I couldn't move. It has these long talony things. It starts to kind of skulk down. And it was starting to track around the basement. And I knew that if it got beyond me here, I couldn't get out of the basement. It wasn't just dread. It was this feeling it could hurt me. And so I ran out as fast as I could. Whatever is in this house, I think it came from hell through the well. From that moment on, I was very concerned for my children's safety. Something had to be done.
Desperate for safety in their home, Shanna and PJ once again go to their church for help. This time, the church decides that their haunting requires an exorcism.
Whatever was in this house, it knew that someone was coming. The priests come in, and I'm told, stay in the prayer corner with one of the priests and do the litany of prayer while the exorcism happens.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. We drive you from us. Most glorious God, defend us against the spirits of wickedness, against all satanic powers, all infernal invaders.
I was in the corner and I was praying, and after it was over, the exorcist priest came over and he whispered in the other priest's ear. He said, we're going to do this all over again. We were supposed to be done, but it was still in the house. My children are not safe from this monster.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost, we drive you from us.
Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you.
When it was all over, there was a collective sigh of relief. It was wonderful.
Exorcisms are really important because you have an individual who is trained in spiritual warfare. In an exorcism, you're basically removing negative thought forms, intent, energies from a surrounding and calling in light. Light of the Christ, holy thought forms, vibration, positive influences, basically making that environment inhospitable to any darkness or evil.
The house felt different. Like it felt more open, it felt more airy. It almost kind of felt like the house was happy too. Yeah, I remember closing the door, smiling at my husband, and then hugging my kids and saying, like, who wants to have dinner?
Since the exorcism, Shanna and PJ haven't had any visits from the dark entity.
Our past is done. We can be a family and pick up from here and go play our games, eat our dinner, and just enjoy life.
On the opposite end of the East Coast from Millville sits the charming rural town of Bloomingdale, Georgia.
If you drive around Bloomingdale, you're going to see a lot of live oaks, a lot of moss in the trees. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Very family oriented. Everybody knows everybody. It sounds kind of corny, but it's kind of like Mayberry.
One of the best towns to live in. Couldn't find a better place to live in.
This bedroom community, just east of downtown Savannah, was founded in 1830.
So the entire area of coastal Georgia is actually much older than a lot of people realize. Bloomingdale got a big railroad boom in the 1830s when the Central of Georgia Railway started to make its way to Savannah.
But look past the surface of Bloomingdale's southern charm, and you'll discover a dark history no one in town can ignore.
As far as local lore, there's a couple places around here that are haunted.
It's a haunted town. It's our haunted town. We know the history here.
A lot of tragic things has happened in the Bloomingdale area.
There have been a lot of deaths in this area from this Civil War, and this area does tend to hold on to its dead in both a natural and supernatural sense. And when you're talking about an area where there was wars, a lot of times people were buried where they fell. Everywhere you're walking, there are bodies.
And it's not just fallen soldiers from the Civil War.
We have our first yellow fever epidemic of the 1800s, which would add to the body count.
Bloomingdale's tragic past continued into the next century, as the railroad that helped build this town was also the source of one of its darkest moments.
In 1959, there was the Meldrum train disaster. A lot of people like to gather around the creeks in the area and the Ogeechee River to swim. What they did not realize is there was a weakness in the train trestle. And as the train was coming over, part of it collapsed. Some of those train cars had butane gas, and they ignited. 14 people were killed, and several more were hospitalized with severe injuries.
One of the reasons why Savannah is one of the most spiritually active places in the world is because of the history, the pain, the trauma that's happened on the land, which would explain why there might be dark entities.
In areas where there's been a lot of bloodshed, it's energetically charged with perhaps the last thought forms of those people that lost their lives, which were shock, anger, horror, grief, sorrow, all of these things that might be appealing to a dark energy.
Mike DeFore moved to Bloomingdale with his family as a teen and hasn't left since.
Mike, interview take 2, Mark. Let's talk about this home.
Well, when I think of this home, I think of it as our family home. My father used to live here, and it really shaped me.
Mike and his wife Tyrese got married 9 years ago.
Ty is my everything. I love her so much. She is a truly beautiful and unique person. When Ty and I were married, I was ecstatic.
and what should have been a time of marital bliss became one of the most terrifying periods in their lives.
As soon as we got home, we felt a presence. And when I opened up the door, it came in like a slow wave coming through. And as soon as it did, I've just felt an overwhelming negative feeling just in the pit of my stomach. It just gave me the chills.
When you have these cold chills in your body, that's often an effect of a spirit drawing that ambient energy out of the environment, out of your own cells, your own living tissue. It's also showing that it can cause some physical impact to a person, which again heightens fear, another energy which you can draw from.
And it just entered into our home. And it stayed. It started with scratching, thumping, and noises. And at first, I tried to dismiss it. But I started noticing figures out of the corner of my eye.
I never feel alone in the house. I always feel like there's somebody or something there keeping an eye on me.
It's not long before the dark entity escalates its presence in their lives, beyond noises and scratches.
This is where Mike and I hang out, spend our evenings together. And I was just reclining here. I feel a presence, but before that I actually smelled something. Then I felt something scratch my head. And something whisper. And I kept on seeing a shadow kind of protruding from our bedroom. It would look here, and then it would go back, and then repeat it. So it was a little bit frightening to see something like that. It's our home. This is where, we're supposed to feel safe.
It really frightened me to know that whatever had been happening in our home, the things in the corner of our eyes and the sounds in the distance, has now taken a physical manifestation.
As the weeks go on, the dark entity grows stronger and more brazen.
One day, I was in the bathroom, shaving as I usually do. I saw a figure, and I, of course, thought it was Ty, and so I started speaking to her, and I thought it was very odd that she never did reply to me. And so I turned around, and when I did, the dark figure had reached out. And then it just disappeared in front of my eyes. It felt an overwhelming negative feeling. This was something I physically saw with my own two eyes, and I knew that we had a presence here that was very strong.
As the weeks go on, the hauntings take their toll on Mike and Tyrese, as the dark entity tries to drive a wedge between them.
This entity was truly affecting both of us, and it was keeping us just far apart from one another.
Dark entities, they can affect a family, they can affect a marriage, causing a lot of conflict. They are full of negative energy, and the energy feeds off of that.
This presence had beat me down to a state where I just couldn't take it anymore. I'd reached my rock bottom. I was literally on the floor, and I was laying on the floor, very upset. within. I could sense that something was there. It gave me goosebumps all over my body. And what I saw was something that was just so horrific. It was this being with eyes that were just piercing. My heart is beating out of my chest. It was terrifying.
Seeing my husband petrified, like a little kid frozen, it scared me.
That's when I had a vision of my mother who had passed away. She actually said, "Fight this thing." Ty pulled me close and she told me that she loved me. I was able to break free from this thing. And at that point we said, we have to fight this thing. And so we grabbed the crucifix, grabbed the Bible, we got some holy water, and we went through the house commanding that it leave.
Entities, they don't like religion. It's a repellent. It's an irritant. It makes them feel small.
I had to stand up because I wanted my marriage. I wanted my husband. I wanted a future. We saged the windows, the corners.
And as we came into the kitchen, we opened up the door and commanded for it to leave. Get out and stay out. The uneasiness, the just overwhelming feeling of negativity immediately was gone. To me, right there at that moment, I knew that things could be okay.
This is our home, where we laugh and where we make memories and where we both feel safe. And that's a beautiful, absolute beautiful thing.
Mike and Tyrese may have cleansed their home, but dark entities still lurk in homes all over this region. Just across the Georgia state line from Bloomingdale sits the upscale town of Bluffton, South Carolina.
Bluffton is a real small coastal, close to the water town, right by the beach. There's a lot of fishing to be done, a lot of seafood restaurants, a lot of really nice communities, and a lot of nice people that live here.
There's a lot of history in Bluffton.
Bluffton does have a lot of buildings that have been here from Civil War times and even before. The Church of the Cross is a gorgeous one.
Located just up the May River from the exclusive resort of Hilton Head, Bluffton has a much darker history than its glitzy neighbor.
I mean, it's a pretty dark history around here. You're going to have a lot of slavery that occurred in this area, a lot of plantations that are now neighborhoods.
Bluffton was founded in the early 1820s by plantation owners, and the plantation owners had slaves. And so we're burdened by the history of slavery.
On top of the devastating history of slavery, Bluffton also suffered massive losses during the Civil War.
Union soldiers decided they would attack here, and this town was burned to the ground.
I feel like the spirits of those people that burned are still here with us.
Bluffton's historic buildings and moss-draped trees mask the existence of dark entities who refuse to move on.
I love my house. I love everything about it.
Shane Thrash, his wife, and their 3 daughters have lived in their home in Bluffton for more than a decade.
Lots of kids in this neighborhood. This is a big family-oriented neighborhood.
But 3 years ago, their dream home turned into a nightmare.
The first time that I really noticed anything paranormal was probably 8 years ago. And I had never in my life seen anything or experienced anything like it.
The paranormal activity started in the most unlikely way, with Shane's shoe collection.
As you can see, I have a thing for shoes. Lord, I probably have over 70 pair of shoes, and primarily it would happen at nighttime. The first time, it had been a long day at work. And I start hearing, it sounded like a dragging noise. I kind of just peeked around the bed and I noticed one of my shoes had hit the floor. At first, I just thought it was just a loose shoe on the rack and it fell down and hit the floor. Maybe the bottom of the shoe was slick or something like that. And then, progressively, as I would go to bed, it continually happened. And I would pin the shoes in the rack in place to where they shouldn't fall, but they would still start falling and hitting the floor. It's a very uncomfortable feeling. There's something you can't physically see that can just start taking control of the situation, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. What happens after this?
In my experience, dark entities have more power than your typical spirit and are able to manifest and to actually move objects.
The power that this dark entity wields becomes apparent to Shane just a week later.
Laying down in bed, fixing to go to sleep. All the lights are off. I had something just pin me completely down to the bed where I could not move my legs. So I flung the sheets off. I looked down, and at the foot of my bed, I saw a black light. As I looked, it just poof, just disappeared. Look around, scan, what was that, Look around, nothing in the house, couldn't find anything. The house was locked, alarm was on, it completely disappeared. It was freaking terrifying. If this thing can grab my legs, what if it could grab my throat? What if it could hit me in the face? What if it could grab something and drop it on my head? There's no telling what it can do.
I've heard a lot of people being pinned down in their bed by a dark mass. It's definitely a negative force. It's definitely a dark entity. At times it could be something demonic. This is basically letting Shane know that they are stronger than him, that this is their space.
Soon after, the dark entity marks its territory even further by targeting Shane's daughter.
This was probably around 7:30 at night. I'm sitting in the living room just watching TV. And my 12-year-old comes out into the living room and tells me the faucet just turned on in the bathroom. Was turned on, so I come in here, I turned it off. Told her maybe I left it on, don't worry about it, no big deal. So I go back in the living room. Good 5 minutes later, she comes in there again, same situation, said the sink in the bathroom was wide open. At this point, I know what's going on because of everything else I've been dealing with. So I sit in here a good 5-10 minutes and nothing else is going on. So I go back in the living room. Maybe 2 minutes later, my 12-year-old comes in there hysterical, crying. And she told me something came across the counter, everything fell and hit the ground, and she was terrified.
Shane would obviously be very protective of his daughter, so the fact that it's doing things to scare her, it's showing that it can cause his daughter harm. So again, it's increasing that fear that's in the house. Maybe a fear that it can use as a sort of battery.
That moment was my breaking point. Once it intervened in my child's and my kid's life and it's scaring my kid, that's when the decision was made. I'm going to call somebody. And if we can't get rid of whatever this is, we're going to have to entertain the idea of moving. Strange as this sounds, I tried reaching out to several preachers, and the preachers didn't even want to mess with it. And I ended up going through several paranormal groups locally before I found Shane and Angie McLean.
Kids having to endure this is terrifying. It's like a nightmare come to life. And then the more scared you get, it feeds off that fear.
You can feel when you go into a place if there is a strong sense of an entity being there. And we definitely felt that as soon as we came in.
There are paranormal people out there that this is what they do. I'm not the right person. I fix air conditioners. That's what I do. You call me, I can fix your air conditioner.
This house needed to be cleansed. Every single wall, every single mirror. I had to close all entryways, doorways, and portals.
One of us is going to have to leave, and it was definitely not going to be me.
It has finally crossed over. It's not lingering anymore, and he has not had any issues.
To have my home back, I mean, to be able to sleep through the night and not be woken up, great feeling, great feeling.
In Millville, Bluffton, and Bloomingdale, you have dark energies which are attracted to the blood in the soil, the trauma, that's residual elements. In an area where you have dark influences, the best thing you can do is just express that light, to be a light bearer for yourself, for this community. Make it a place which is not conducive to these dark beings